I'm gonna need you to step outside with me.
I'm waiting for my car to be serviced. What's suspicious about that?
Someone matching your description was seen casing vehicles in the lot. Stand up.
Matching my description? You mean black?
I'm not gonna ask you again. Stand up or I'm taking you out of here in cuffs.
I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Marcus Webb, and you just threatened me on camera. You're correct.
31 police officers. That's how many Marcus Webb had prosecuted in 9 years with the Civil Rights Unit. 28 convictions. Careers destroyed. Pensions revoked. Prison sentences that would outlast marriages and childhoods. He had earned the nickname, the Cop Hunter, by being meticulous, relentless, and utterly without mercy for officers who believed their badges placed them above the law. On a Saturday afternoon at a Buckhead car dealership, Officer Brett Holloway made himself number 32. 14 weeks on the force. A cousin on the city council who had pushed his application through despite failed background checks. A history of stops that targeted minorities with surgical precision. He saw a black man in jeans sitting in a luxury lounge and decided that was suspicious enough to warrant detention. He grabbed a federal prosecutor by the arm and yanked him off a sofa. He threatened handcuffs. He refused to verify credentials. The body cam recorded everything. The dealership cameras recorded more. And the man who had spent 9 years putting cops in prison watched his 30-second case build itself in real time. Prestige Motors of Buckhead occupied prime real estate on Peachtree Road, its floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Porsche vehicles that started at 6 figures and climbed from there. The clientele matched the inventory: executives, surgeons, attorneys, the kind of people who scheduled routine maintenance like they scheduled board meetings. Marcus Webb had been coming here for 3 years, ever since he purchased his Mercedes-AMG GT to celebrate his promotion to lead prosecutor on the Civil Rights Unit. The car was indulgent, he knew that. But after 5 years as a public defender watching the system fail his clients, and 4 more years at DOJ building cases that actually held officers accountable, he had allowed himself one luxury. 9 years as Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. Lead prosecutor on United States versus Harrison, the case that sent an entire narcotics unit to federal prison for planting evidence and stealing cash during raids. 31 officers prosecuted. 28 convictions. $95 million in settlements secured for victims of police misconduct. Harvard Law. Cum laude. 5 years in the trenches as a public defender before crossing to prosecution because he wanted to clean up the system from the inside. Recently promoted to chief of the Civil Rights Unit. They called him the Cop Hunter in law enforcement circles. Some meant it as an insult. Others, the honest ones, meant it as a warning. On this Saturday afternoon, Webb sat in the customer lounge on a gray modern sofa, legs crossed casually, reviewing case files on his phone while his Mercedes received routine maintenance in Bay 3. Black shirt, blue jeans, clean-shaved head with a neatly trimmed beard. The clothes of a man on his day off, not his courtroom uniform. The sales associate noticed him first. A young white man in a slim-fit suit who whispered something to his colleague near the reception desk. Their eyes cut toward Webb. Their conversation continued in murmurs. Then the woman approached the manager. She was mid-50s, white, designer handbag, browsing the BMW section with the particular entitlement of someone who had never been questioned about her presence anywhere. Her voice carried across the showroom, not shouting, but not quiet either. There's a man in the lounge who doesn't look like he belongs here. I don't feel comfortable. Is there something you can do? The manager, a trim man in his 40s named Gerald Patterson, looked toward the lounge. He saw what the woman saw, a black man in casual clothes sitting where customers sat. He didn't see the federal prosecutor. He didn't see the Harvard degree. He didn't see the 31 cases that had reshaped police accountability in Georgia. He saw what his assumptions told him to see. I'll handle it, ma'am. Patterson retreated to his office. He picked up the phone. He dialed 911. I'd like to report a suspicious individual at Prestige Motors on Peachtree. A black male, possibly casing vehicles in our showroom. He's been sitting in the customer lounge for about 20 minutes. The dispatcher asked for a description. Black, mid-30s, jeans, and a black shirt. He's just sitting there. Officer Brett Holloway was dispatched at 2:09 p.m. He arrived at 2:12. The showroom doors opened with a soft chime. Holloway entered with his hand already near his belt, not on his weapon, but close. The posture of someone who had decided the nature of the encounter before it began. 14 weeks on the force. Badge number 5523. His uniform still carried the crisp sheen of recent issue. The Axon Body 2 on his chest activated as he crossed the threshold, timestamp reading 14 hours 12 minutes and 58 seconds. Webb looked up from his phone as the officer approached. He had seen that walk before, hundreds of times, in hundreds of bodycam videos, in case after case where officers approached black citizens with assumptions already calcified into certainty. "Sir, I need you to step outside." Webb didn't stand. His posture remained relaxed. His voice carried the measured calm of someone who had conducted countless depositions. "Is there a problem, officer? We received a report of suspicious activity. Someone matching your description was seen casing vehicles." Matching my description? Webb set his phone on the sofa cushion beside him. What description would that be? Black male. This location. Acting suspicious. Acting suspicious how? Holloway's jaw tightened. The body cam captured the reaction. The flicker of irritation when the unspoken was spoken aloud. "That's what I'm here to determine. Step outside. I'm a customer. My car is being serviced in Bay 3. I've been sitting in this lounge, which is designed for customers to sit in, for approximately 20 minutes. What about that is suspicious?" "Sir, I'm not going to ask again. You haven't asked at all. You've demanded. There's a legal distinction." Holloway stepped closer. The bodycam frame tightened, Webb's face filling the center, the floor-to-ceiling windows behind him showing the parking lot full of luxury vehicles. "The description I received was a black male, possibly casing vehicles. You're a black male in a car dealership. That's enough for me to investigate." "No, it isn't. Being black in a car dealership isn't a crime. It's not suspicious activity. It's not probable cause for detention. It's not anything except racism dressed up as law enforcement." "Are you calling me racist?" "I'm calling your probable cause non-existent." "Which it is. And I'm telling you that I'm a customer waiting for my vehicle. You can verify that with the service department in 30 seconds. I don't need to verify anything. I need you to step outside." "On what legal basis?" "On the basis that I'm a police officer conducting an investigation." "An investigation into what?" "A black man sitting on a sofa." Holloway's hand moved to his handcuffs. The body cam captured the motion, fingers curling around the metal, thumb resting on the release. "Sir, you can step outside voluntarily, or I can take you out in cuffs. Your choice." Webb's expression didn't change. His voice remained level, the same tone he used when cross-examining hostile witnesses. "Officer Holloway." He read the nameplate deliberately. "Badge number 5523. I'm Assistant United States Attorney Marcus Webb. I'm assigned to the Civil Rights Unit for the Northern District of Georgia. I've prosecuted 31 police officers for violations exactly like the one you're committing right now." He paused. "You just threatened to handcuff a federal prosecutor for sitting in a car dealership. Your career is over. The only question is how much worse you want to make it." Holloway's expression flickered. The bodycam caught it, a microsecond of doubt, quickly buried under 14 weeks of certainty. "Federal prosecutor." He laughed. The sound was dismissive, contemptuous. "Sure you are. Federal prosecutor sitting in jeans waiting for a car? Right. My credentials are in my pocket. Would you like to see them? I'd like you to step outside. And I'd like you to understand the magnitude of the mistake you're making." Holloway reached for Webb's arm. The grip was aggressive, fingers closing around Webb's bicep, yanking upward with force that served no purpose except to demonstrate dominance. The bodycam captured the motion. So did the dealership security cameras positioned throughout the showroom. "Get up. Now." Webb rose from the sofa, not because he was complying with a lawful order, but because resisting would give Holloway a justification he didn't currently have. 9 years of prosecuting these cases had taught him exactly how they were constructed and how to prevent giving officers the ammunition they needed. "I'm not resisting," he said clearly, projecting toward the bodycam. "I'm being physically removed from a customer lounge where I was lawfully present. This is unlawful detention and assault." "Shut up. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm an Assistant United States Attorney. My DOJ credentials are in my right front pocket. My federal ID is in my wallet in my left back pocket. My vehicle, a Mercedes-AMG GT, is currently in Service Bay 3. Everything I'm telling you can be verified in under 60 seconds. I said shut up. Holloway pulled him toward the showroom entrance. The other customers had frozen, a white couple examining a Porsche, 2 salesmen near the reception desk, a family with a teenager looking at BMWs. all watching, some with phones raised. Officer, I'm a federal prosecutor. I've sent 31 police officers to prison for civil rights violations. The case I'm best known for, United States versus Harrison, resulted in an entire narcotics unit being convicted. You are currently adding yourself to my record. Keep talking, and I'll add resisting arrest. I'm not resisting anything. I'm documenting. There's a difference. Footsteps. Rapid. Coming from the service department entrance. Stop. Stop. The voice belonged to a man in his 50s wearing a Prestige Motors service uniform. His nameplate read Thomas. His face was pale with recognition and horror. That's Mr. Webb. He's a federal prosecutor. His car is in Bay 3. Holloway's grip loosened slightly. His head turned toward the voice. What? Thomas rushed forward, a service clipboard in his hand. He thrust it toward Holloway. The work order visible, the name printed clearly at the top. Marcus Webb, Mercedes-AMG GT, VIN number right here. He's been a customer for 3 years. His car is in Bay 3 right now. What are you doing? The bodycam captured Holloway's face. The color draining. The realization spreading like a stain. He said he was. I didn't. He told you, Thomas said. I heard him from the service entrance. He told you exactly who he was. Webb straightened his shirt where Holloway's grip had twisted the fabric. His voice remained calm. The composure of a man who had built cases far more complex than this one. Officer Holloway, badge number 5523. You will remain in this building until I authorize your departure. Do you understand? I was responding to a call. You were responding to a complaint about a black man sitting in a customer lounge. You refused to verify my identity. You refused to check with the service department. You physically assaulted me and attempted to remove me from a business where I was lawfully present as a customer. Webb reached into his right front pocket, slowly, deliberately, keeping his movements visible for the cameras. He produced a leather credential case and opened it. Department of Justice. Assistant United States Attorney. Northern District of Georgia. His photograph beside the federal seal. These are my credentials. The ones you refused to let me show you. He reached for his phone on the sofa where it had fallen during the confrontation. Now I'm going to call my office. And you're going to stand there while I open a case file for my own assault. He dialed. The line connected. This is AUSA Webb. Get me the U.S. Marshal on duty and start a file. I'm about to become a victim in one of my own cases. The paralegal's voice came through the phone with the professional urgency of someone who understood exactly what she was hearing. Sir, are you safe? I'm safe. The officer has released me. I need this documented immediately. Incident occurred at Prestige Motors in Buckhead. Officer Brett Holloway, badge number 5523, Atlanta PD, unlawful detention, assault, civil rights violation under color of law. I have bodycam footage from his perspective and security camera footage from the dealership. I'm contacting the marshal now. Do you want FBI response? Yes. And notify the Office of Professional Responsibility. This goes federal immediately. He ended the call. He looked at Holloway, who stood frozen near the showroom entrance, his face the color of wet cement. Officer, I'm going to explain what happens next. Not as a threat, as a professional courtesy, because I've been on the other side of this conversation 31 times. The dealership had gone silent. Customers, employees, salespeople, all watching the scene unfold. Several phones remained raised, recording from angles the official cameras might miss. The FBI will respond within the hour. They'll secure your bodycam footage. They'll subpoena the dealership's security recordings. They'll pull the 911 call that brought you here. They'll interview the woman who complained about my presence, and I suspect her explanation will be illuminating. Holloway's mouth opened. Nothing came out. They'll pull your personnel file, your training records, your stop data. They'll examine every civilian contact you've had since you graduated from the academy, which, based on your badge number, was approximately 14 weeks ago. I was just doing my job. Your job isn't to detain federal prosecutors for sitting in customer lounges. Your job isn't to ignore identification when it's offered. Your job isn't to physically assault citizens who haven't committed any crime. Webb stepped closer. His voice dropped, not to a whisper, but to the register he used during closing arguments. The tone that juries remembered. I've prosecuted 31 officers for civil rights violations. 28 convictions. I know exactly how these cases are built. I know exactly what evidence matters. And I know exactly what your bodycam just recorded. Sirens approached. Not local police. The pitch was different. Federal vehicles. That sound. That's your career ending. Not in disciplinary proceedings. Not in civil court. In federal criminal court, where I've spent 9 years putting officers exactly like you in prison. The first FBI vehicle pulled into the dealership lot. Then a second. Black SUVs with federal plates. The quiet efficiency of an agency that took assaults on federal prosecutors very seriously. Special Agent Denise Crawford entered the showroom first. Webb knew her. They had worked cases together for 5 years. Her expression shifted when she saw him, then hardened when she saw Holloway still standing near the entrance in his patrol uniform. "Marcus, are you injured?" "No, but I was assaulted. Full documentation is on my phone. The dealership has security footage." His body cam was running the entire time. Crawford turned to Holloway. Her credentials were already in her hand. "Officer Holloway, I'm Special Agent Crawford, FBI. You are not under arrest at this time, but you are being detained pending investigation. Your body cam is now federal evidence. Your weapon and badge will be collected. Do you understand?" Holloway's voice cracked. "I was responding to a call. We'll discuss that at the field office." She signaled to the agents behind her. 2 approached Holloway. One secured his weapon. The other removed his body cam with gloved hands, handling it like the evidence it had become. Webb watched from the lounge where this had started. The gray sofa, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the space where he had been sitting peacefully, reviewing case files, waiting for his car. 31 prosecutions. This would be 32. The investigation moved with the velocity of a case where the victim was also one of the most experienced civil rights prosecutors in the region. The body cam footage was in federal custody within hours. 11 minutes of continuous recording, from Holloway's entrance to his detention by FBI agents. The dealership security system provided 4 additional angles, including a camera directly above the lounge that captured the moment Holloway grabbed Webb's arm and yanked him from the sofa. The 911 call was pulled from dispatch records. Gerald Patterson's voice, calm and certain. "A black male, possibly casing vehicles in our showroom." The dispatcher asking what suspicious behavior he had observed. Patterson's response, "He's just sitting there." The woman who had complained was identified within 24 hours. Catherine Merrill, 57, resident of a gated community in Sandy Springs. Her interview was recorded at the FBI field office. "Why did you approach the manager?" "I felt uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable why?" "He didn't look like he belonged there." "What do you mean by that?" Silence. "Ma'am, what about Mr. Webb suggested he didn't belong in a car dealership?" "I don't know. He was just sitting there." "In jeans." "Were there other customers in jeans?" "I didn't notice." "Were there other customers sitting in the lounge?" "Yes." "Did you report any of them?" Silence. "Ma'am, the other customers in the lounge were white. Mr. Webb is black. Is that why you felt uncomfortable?" "I'm not racist." "I didn't ask if you were racist. I asked why you reported a man for sitting in a customer lounge." She had no answer. But the investigation into Catherine Merrill was secondary. The primary target was Officer Brett Holloway, and what the FBI uncovered explained everything. Holloway had failed background checks at 2 other departments before Atlanta hired him. Cobb County had flagged concerning attitudes during his psychological evaluation. Gwinnett County had documented inappropriate comments during scenario training. Both had declined to move forward. Atlanta PD hired him anyway. City Councilman David Holloway, Brett's cousin, had shepherded the application through. He had spoken with the police chief directly. He had ensured that the concerns from other departments were dismissed as personality differences. He had pushed his cousin into a uniform despite every warning sign that predicted exactly what happened at Prestige Motors. Digital forensics uncovered more. Brett Holloway's phone contained text messages that would have disqualified any properly vetted candidate. Group chats joking about profiling paying off. Comments about knowing what to look for in certain neighborhoods. A message sent 3 days before the Webb incident. "These rich areas are the best. They call us for anything." Easy stats. His stop records told the same story. 19 civilian contacts in 14 weeks. 17 involved Black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests. 0 citations. Just stops. Demands for ID. Questions about what people were doing in spaces where Holloway had decided they didn't belong. Prestige Motors. A luxury car dealership. A customer lounge designed for waiting. And in 14 weeks, Holloway had decided that a black man in jeans didn't fit. The federal grand jury returned indictments 8 weeks after the incident. Civil rights violations under color of law. Assault on a federal officer. False imprisonment. Filing false reports. Deprivation of rights under the 14th Amendment. City Councilman David Holloway was named as an unindicted co-conspirator, pending investigation into corrupt hiring practices. Webb provided testimony over 3 days. He walked through every moment of the encounter with the precision that had made him feared in courtrooms across Georgia. When asked how he remained calm while being assaulted, his answer made national news. "I've built these cases for 9 years. I know what evidence matters. I knew my best weapon wasn't resistance, it was documentation." The federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. was selected to avoid conflict of interest. Webb had worked with too many judges in Georgia, knew too many prosecutors, had too much history in the Northern District where he had built his career. The trial lasted 5 days. The evidence was overwhelming. The Bodycam footage was played first. 11 minutes of continuous recording. The jury watched Holloway enter the showroom. They watched him demand Webb step outside. They watched him dismiss every explanation. They watched him threaten handcuffs. They watched him grab the arm of a federal prosecutor and yank him off a sofa. Then the dealership security footage. For angles, the camera above the lounge captured Holloway's grip, fingers digging into Webb's arm, the force of the pull, the physical removal of a customer from a space designed for customers. The 911 call was played next. The jury listened to Patterson report a suspicious individual for the crime of sitting. They heard the dispatcher ask for suspicious behavior. They heard the answer. "He's just sitting there." This call is what triggered the response. The prosecutor told the jury. A black man sitting in a customer lounge. That was the crime. That was the suspicious activity. That was everything Officer Holloway needed to justify assault on a federal prosecutor. The pattern evidence was displayed on screens. 19 stops. 17 minorities. 0 arrests. Text messages joking about profiling. Social media posts celebrating aggressive policing in nice areas. Webb testified on the 4th day. He wore the same jeans and black shirt he had worn the afternoon of the incident. A deliberate choice, a visual reminder that clothing doesn't determine character or citizenship. "I've prosecuted 31 officers for civil rights violations," he told the jury. "I've seen every excuse, every justification, every attempt to explain away what the evidence clearly shows. I never expected to be on this side of the case. But here I am. Proof that it can happen to anyone, regardless of credentials, regardless of education, regardless of profession. The only thing that mattered to Officer Holloway was the color of my skin." The defense attempted the only strategy available, misunderstanding. A good faith response to a legitimate call. No way to know. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. He couldn't have known, because he didn't want to know. Mr. Webb identified himself as a federal prosecutor. Officer Holloway laughed. Mr. Webb offered to show credentials. Officer Holloway refused. Mr. Webb explained his car was in Bay 3. Officer Holloway didn't check. She turned to face the jury. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a choice. A choice to assume. A choice to ignore. A choice to assault a federal prosecutor because Officer Holloway couldn't imagine a black man in jeans belonged in a luxury car dealership. Holloway testified in his own defense. It lasted 3 hours under cross-examination. He claimed good faith. The prosecutor showed his stop data. He claimed he couldn't have known. The prosecutor played the Bodycam footage where Webb identified himself twice. He claimed the department trained him to respond to calls exactly this way. Did the department train you to ignore identification? The prosecutor asked. No answer. Did the department train you to laugh at federal credentials? Silence. Did the department train you that black man sitting constitutes probable cause? The jury didn't need an answer. They deliberated for 4 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. Enhanced for targeting a federal official and for the documented pattern of civil rights violations. Holloway stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His cousin was not in the courtroom. His attorney had advised against it. Sentencing drew national attention. The case had become a symbol. A federal prosecutor who had spent his career holding officers accountable becoming a victim of exactly the conduct he had fought against. The judge reviewed the pre-sentencing report with visible gravity. The failed background checks. The cousin's corrupt influence. The text messages. The stop records. the pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Holloway, you had 14 weeks to learn what it means to wear a badge. Instead, you spent those 14 weeks proving why 2 other departments rejected you. You targeted minorities. You joked about profiling. You assaulted a federal prosecutor in a car dealership because you couldn't imagine a black man belonged there. She paused. The enhanced sentencing provisions for assaulting a federal official apply here. So do the pattern enhancements for documented civil rights violations. This sentence reflects not only what you did to Mr. Webb, but what you would have continued doing to countless others who lacked his credentials and resources. She delivered the sentence without emotion. 30 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Holloway was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. His 14-week career had cost him 3 decades of freedom. City Councilman David Holloway resigned before criminal charges could be filed. The FBI investigation into his corrupt hiring practices remained open. 3 supervisors who had approved Brett's application despite documented red flags were terminated. The police chief resigned within 6 months. The department entered a DOJ consent decree requiring federal oversight for 7 years. Gerald Patterson, the dealership manager who had called 911, was terminated by Prestige Motors. The dealership implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination training and settled a civil complaint from Webb without litigation. Catherine Merrill, the woman whose complaint triggered the call, faced civil liability. She settled out of court and was required to complete extensive bias education. The city settled with Webb for $12.5 million within 4 months. He kept $7.5 million for personal security, retirement funding, and family trusts. The remaining $5 million established the Equal Justice Legal Fund, providing free representation to victims of racial profiling who couldn't afford attorneys. This money exists because I was sitting in a car dealership, Webb said in the statement announcing the fund. I had credentials. I had a career. I had resources to fight back. Most victims don't. This fund is for them. Marcus Webb was promoted to chief of the Civil Rights Section for the entire DOJ Southern Region 6 months after the verdict. He now oversees prosecutions across Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and the Carolinas, expanding the work he had done in Atlanta to 5 additional states. His 32nd case remained on his record, not as a prosecution, as a victim. He referenced it in every training session he conducted for new civil rights prosecutors. Document everything. Stay calm. Know that your best weapon isn't physical resistance. It's evidence they can't deny. Brett Holloway is currently incarcerated at USP Atlanta. He will be eligible for release consideration in 2054. His appeals have been denied twice. His cousin does not visit. Marcus Webb still drives his Mercedes-AMG GT. He still takes it to Prestige Motors for service, the same dealership, under new management, with new policies. He still sits in the customer lounge while he waits. Gray sofa, floor-to-ceiling windows. The same space where Holloway grabbed his arm and tried to remove him. He sits there deliberately, a reminder that the lounge was never the problem. The problem was an officer who couldn't imagine a black man belonged. That officer is in prison now. The lounge remains. And so does Marcus Webb.
Cut the engine. Keep your hands where I can see them. We're conducting a search.
A search? I'm in a small boat, man. I'm just trying to chill out here.
We got a tip about drug activity in this area. What's in the bag?
What description?
That's none of your business.
I'm an undercover FBI agent. Let me see your badge, officer.
The 911 call lasted 47 seconds. A woman's voice. Calm. Certain. There's a black male at the Pine Grove boat launch. He looks like he might be dealing drugs from a kayak. The dispatcher asked for clarification. What drugs? What behavior? The caller hesitated. I don't know. I just feel uncomfortable. That discomfort would cost the Gainesville Police Department $6.8 million. It would cost Officer Ryan Caldwell 15 years of his life. And it would expose a pattern of corrupt hiring, racist communications, and Fourth Amendment violations that put the entire department under federal oversight. Special Agent Marcus Devereaux was loading his kayak when Caldwell arrived. 17 years FBI. Former Navy SEAL. 3 major drug organizations dismantled. The very definition of an expert in what drug dealing actually looks like. But to the caller, he was just a black man in a nice area. To Caldwell, he was an easy stop. To the federal jury that convicted them both, they were exactly what the evidence showed them to be. Lake Lanier stretched across 38,000 acres of North Georgia, its blue waters cutting through pine forests and granite outcroppings that had made it one of the most popular recreational destinations in the Southeast. On Saturday mornings, the Pine Grove boat launch filled with fishing boats, jet skis, and families hauling coolers to rented pontoons. It was the kind of place where people came to escape from work, from stress, from everything that weighed on them during the week. For Marcus Devereaux, the escape was literal. 17 years with the FBI, assigned to the Drug Enforcement Task Force in the Atlanta field office, led agent responsible for dismantling 3 major trafficking organizations that had moved cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl through Georgia's interstate corridors. The work required absolute focus, months undercover, building trust with people who would kill him if they discovered who he really was. Before the Bureau, 8 years as a Navy SEAL, 2 combat tours, Bronze Star for Valor, Navy Commendation Medal, the kind of service record that opened doors and commanded respect in rooms where credentials mattered. Top of his class at Quantico, master's degree from John Jay College, expert in undercover operations and surveillance. One of the most decorated agents in the Southeast region. None of it showed on the shirtless black man paddling a blue kayak across the still morning water. That was the point. Saturday mornings were his. No badge, no operations, no pretending to be someone else. Just the rhythmic stroke of the paddle and the silence of the lake. He had finished his loop by 9 a.m., 3 hours of solitude that kept him sane. By 9:15, he was at the Pine Grove boat launch, lifting his kayak onto the bed of his Ford F-150, securing the straps with the methodical precision that military service had made instinctive. His waterproof dry bag sat on the truck's tailgate. Phone, wallet, car keys, FBI credentials, everything a solo kayaker needed protected from the water. The White family on the dock had been watching him since he paddled in. The husband, the wife, 2 children in life jackets waiting to board a rental pontoon. They hadn't waved, hadn't nodded, just watched. The wife had stepped away for a phone call. Her voice had been too quiet to hear from the boat ramp. Her expression had been tight with something that looked like concern. Devereaux had noticed. 17 years of undercover work had trained him to notice everything. But he had dismissed it. People stared. It wasn't new. It wasn't worth the energy. He was tightening the final strap when the patrol car pulled into the lot. The officer who stepped out was young, mid-20s, uniform crisp with the sheen of recent issue. His badge was in the 9100 series, recent academy graduation. His hand moved to his belt before his feet fully hit the pavement. Devereaux recognized the posture. He had seen it countless times in his career, usually from officers who didn't realize they were about to make a serious mistake. The body cam on the officer's chest activated with a soft beep. The recording had begun. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Devereaux turned slowly. His hands remained visible, one resting on the kayak strap, the other at his side. 17 years of training had taught him exactly how to manage encounters with law enforcement who had already decided what they were looking at. "Is there a problem, officer? I need you to step away from the truck. Now, I'm loading my kayak. I've been on the water since 6 this morning." The officer closed the distance. His nameplate read Caldwell. His hand remained near his belt, fingers twitching toward equipment he hadn't yet decided to use. "We got a report of suspicious activity at this location." Suspicious activity. Devereaux's voice remained level. What kind of suspicious activity involves a kayak? Drug activity. Someone matching your description was seen conducting what appeared to be a transaction from a watercraft. A transaction from a kayak. That's what was reported. Devereaux looked at his kayak, a single-seat recreational model, bright blue, with nothing inside except a paddle and a life jacket. He looked at the boat launch around them. Families loading coolers, fishermen organizing tackle boxes, children running toward the water. "Officer, I've been paddling alone for 3 hours. I haven't spoken to anyone. I haven't conducted any transaction. What exactly do I match the description of?" Caldwell's jaw tightened. The bodycam caught the reaction. "Black male. Kayak. This area." "So the description is black man with a kayak." "I didn't say that. You just did. You said the description was black male, kayak, this area." "That's not a description of criminal activity. That's a description of my existence." "Sir, I'm going to need to see what's in that bag." He pointed to the waterproof dry bag on the tailgate. "Standard equipment. Every kayaker on the lake had one." "No. Excuse me. You don't have consent to search my belongings. You don't have probable cause. You have an anonymous call about a black man with a kayak, which isn't a crime in any jurisdiction I'm aware of. We received a report of drug activity. Then find the person conducting drug activity. I've been alone on the water, minding my business, exercising my right to enjoy a public lake on a Saturday morning. Caldwell stepped closer. His posture shifted, weight forward, shoulders squared. The body cam captured the aggression before he spoke. What's in the bag? Phone, wallet, car keys. Nothing you have any legal right to examine. Why won't you let me look if there's nothing to hide? Because the Fourth Amendment exists. Because I don't have to justify my privacy to an officer who can't articulate probable cause. Because black man with a kayak doesn't meet any standard of reasonable suspicion I've ever encountered. You're being very uncooperative. I'm being appropriately protective of my constitutional rights. There's a difference. Caldwell's hand moved to his radio. He keyed the mic without taking his eyes off Devereaux. Dispatch, this is Unit 47 at Pine Grove Boat Launch. I've got a suspicious individual refusing to cooperate with an investigation. Subject is possibly armed. Requesting backup. Devereaux heard every word. Suspicious. Refusing to cooperate. Possibly armed. None of it was true. All of it was now recorded on Bodycam and dispatch logs. Officer Caldwell. Devereaux's voice carried the calm authority of someone who had conducted hundreds of interrogations. I'm not armed. I'm not suspicious. I'm not refusing to cooperate with a legitimate investigation. I'm refusing to submit to an unconstitutional search based on nothing more than my skin color. We'll see about that. Yes. Devereaux reached slowly for the dry bag, not to open it, but to retrieve his phone. We will. He dialed a number he knew by heart. His supervisor answered on the second ring. Crawford. Supervisory Special Agent Denise Crawford's voice came through the phone clearly. Saturday morning. Her day off too. But she had answered anyway, because agents like Devereaux didn't call on weekends without reason. Denise, it's Mark. I need you to listen and record this call. I'm being detained by a Gainesville PD officer at Lake Lanier. No probable cause. No consent. He's claiming suspicious drug activity based on an anonymous tip about a black man with a kayak. Crawford's tone shifted immediately. Professional. Alert. I'm recording. Go ahead. Devereaux held the phone at his side, speaker volume low but sufficient for the microphone to capture everything. The body cam was recording from Caldwell's perspective. Now the FBI was recording from his. Sir, put the phone down. I'm on a call with my supervisor. I don't care who you're talking to. Put it down. Officer, I'm a federal law enforcement agent. This call is being recorded. Everything you say and do from this point forward is being documented by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Caldwell laughed. The body cam captured the sound. Dismissive, contemptuous, certain. FBI. Right. And I'm the CIA. My credentials are in that bag. You're welcome to verify them. I'm not verifying anything until you submit to a search. Then we're at an impasse. Because I'm not consenting to an unconstitutional search, and you don't have legal authority to conduct one without consent or probable cause. Innocent people don't refuse searches. That's not how the Fourth Amendment works. Innocent people have the same rights as everyone else. The right to refuse an unreasonable search is fundamental. It's the difference between a free society and a police state. Are you lecturing me? I'm informing you of the law, which you're currently violating. Caldwell stepped forward. His hand closed around Devereaux's arm, fingers digging into muscle, yanking him away from the truck. Turn around. Hands on the vehicle. On what grounds? Failure to comply with a lawful order. You haven't given a lawful order. You've demanded an unconstitutional search, and I've declined. I said turn around. Crawford's voice came through the phone, loud enough for Caldwell to hear. Officer, this is Supervisory Special Agent Denise Crawford, FBI Atlanta Field Office. You are currently detaining a federal agent without probable cause. This call is being recorded. I strongly advise you to de-escalate immediately. Caldwell froze. His grip on Devereaux's arm loosened slightly. Who is that? My supervisor. As I told you, anyone can have someone pretend to be FBI on a phone call. Then verify. My credentials are in the bag. My badge number is SA 7734. Call the Atlanta Field Office. They'll confirm everything. Caldwell's face had reddened. The body cam captured the flush. the look of someone whose certainty was colliding with information he didn't want to process. I'm not calling anyone. Turn around. Now. He spun Devereaux toward the truck, pressed him against the tailgate. The kayak rattled in its straps from the impact. Hands behind your back. You're making a serious mistake. We'll see who's making mistakes. His hands moved across Devereaux's body. A pat-down search conducted without consent, without warrant, without any legal justification. The bodycam recorded every motion. Crawford listened through the phone that had fallen to the tailgate, but continued recording. Caldwell's hand found the dry bag. He unzipped it without asking, without consent, without authority. His fingers closed around the leather credential case inside. He pulled it out. He opened it. FBI. Special Agent. Marcus Devereaux. The photograph matched the man pressed against the truck. The badge gleamed in the morning sun. Caldwell's face went white. The bodycam captured every frame. Silence stretched across the boat launch. The families loading their gear had stopped to watch. The fishermen had paused at their trucks. A teenager with a phone had been recording since Caldwell first approached. This is Caldwell's voice cracked. This could be fake. It's not fake. Call the number on the back. They'll verify in 30 seconds. Caldwell didn't call. He stood frozen, the FBI credentials open in his hand, his bodycam recording his own paralysis. Officer. Devereaux turned slowly, his hands still visible. You just conducted an unconstitutional search of a federal agent. You detained me without probable cause. You ignored my identification. You called for backup with false information. Everything you've done in the last 10 minutes is now evidence in a federal civil rights investigation. I was responding to a call. You were responding to a call about a black man with a kayak. That's not a crime. That's not suspicious activity. That's racism, codified into a 911 report and acted upon by an officer who didn't think twice about why a black man at a lake might warrant police attention. Sirens approached. The backup Caldwell had requested. 2 patrol cars pulled into the lot. Sergeant Linda Williams stepped out of the first, 18 years on the force, a reputation for by-the-book policing. She had responded personally when she heard the dispatch call mention, possibly armed, at a family boat launch. She assessed the scene in 3 seconds. A black man at a truck. A rookie officer holding what appeared to be federal credentials. Bystanders with phones raised. The tension radiating from everyone present. Officer Caldwell. Report. Sergeant, I was conducting a welfare check based on a suspicious activity call. What activity? The caller reported possible drug dealing from a kayak. Williams looked at the kayak strapped to the truck. A single-seat recreational model. Nothing in it but a paddle and a life jacket. Drug dealing from a kayak. That's what was reported. And you found. Caldwell's hand trembled slightly. He held up the credentials. He says he's FBI. Williams took the credential case. She examined it with the thoroughness of someone who had verified federal IDs before. Photograph. Badge number. Issue date. Security features. This is legitimate. It could be. It's legitimate. I've worked joint task forces. I know what FBI credentials look like. She turned to Devereaux. Agent Devereaux, I apologize. Are you injured? No. Do you need medical attention? No. What do you need? I need Officer Caldwell's bodycam footage preserved. I need the dispatch recording secured. I need the 911 call that generated this response archived. And I need to speak with whoever is in charge of your internal affairs division. Crawford's voice came through the phone on the tailgate. Agent Devereaux, FBI units are en route. ETA 15 minutes. I've already contacted Gainesville PD's chief directly. This is now a federal matter. Williams heard it. Her expression shifted. The look of someone watching a catastrophe unfold and knowing exactly what it would cost. Officer Caldwell, return to your vehicle. Do not touch your bodycam. Do not speak to anyone. You're relieved of duty pending investigation. Sergeant, I was just following up on a call. You conducted an unconstitutional search of a federal agent, ignored his identification, and called in false information to dispatch. Your involvement in any police activity ends right now. 3 black SUVs pulled into the lot 20 minutes later. FBI badges. Federal authority. The kind of response that signaled how seriously the Bureau took assaults on their own. Caldwell sat alone in his patrol car, watching men in suits photograph his badge, examine his bodycam, speak quietly with the agent he had accused of dealing drugs from a kayak. His 9-week career was already over. He just didn't know the sentence yet. The investigation began before Caldwell left the parking lot. FBI Internal Affairs and Gainesville Police Internal Affairs worked in parallel, each uncovering pieces of a pattern that explained everything. The 911 caller was identified within 24 hours. Rebecca Hartley, 43 years old, resident of a lakefront community on the North Shore. She had been at Pine Grove with her family, waiting to board a rental pontoon, when she saw Devereaux paddle in. Her interview was recorded. "Why did you call 911? "I saw him loading his kayak. He was alone. He didn't look like he belonged there." "What made you think he didn't belong?" Silence. "What made you think he was dealing drugs?" "I don't know. I just felt uncomfortable." "Did you see any drugs? Any transaction? Any behavior that suggested criminal activity?" "No." "Did you see anything illegal at all?" "No. I felt uncomfortable." 14 similar calls were discovered in her phone records. Black joggers in her neighborhood. Black families at the community pool. Black men fishing on the public pier. 14 calls to police over 2 years, each reporting suspicious activity that turned out to be people existing while black in spaces she had decided weren't meant for them. She was charged with filing a false police report. But the investigation revealed more about Officer Caldwell than about the caller who had triggered the response. Ryan Caldwell had been rejected by 4 police departments before Gainesville hired him. Atlanta PD, Cobb County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County. Each had documented concerns during background investigations. Each had declined to move forward. Gainesville hired him anyway. Lieutenant Thomas Caldwell, Ryan's father, had shepherded the application through. He had overruled the background concerns. He had dismissed the rejections as departmental politics. He had pushed his son into a uniform despite every warning sign that predicted exactly what happened at Lake Lanier. Digital forensics uncovered the rest. Ryan Caldwell's personal devices contained text messages and social media posts that would have disqualified any properly vetted candidate. Group chats with academy classmates joking about cleaning up nice areas. Comments on news articles celebrating officers in controversial shootings. Private messages discussing which neighborhoods were worth patrolling and which residents needed extra attention. One text, sent 3 weeks before the Devereaux incident, stood out. "These people think they can go anywhere now. Someone needs to remind them how things work." His stop records told the same story. 31 civilian contacts in 9 weeks. 26 involved Black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests. 0 citations. Just stops. Demands for ID, questions about what people were doing in places where Caldwell had decided they didn't belong. Lake Lanier, a public lake, state property, open to every citizen regardless of race. And in 9 weeks, Caldwell had stopped 11 Black visitors at various access points, each time claiming suspicious activity, each time finding nothing. The FBI presented its findings to a federal grand jury 8 weeks after the incident. The indictment was comprehensive. Civil rights violations under color of law, assault on a federal officer, filing false reports, unlawful detention, conducting unconstitutional searches. Lieutenant Thomas Caldwell was suspended pending investigation into corrupt hiring practices. The background investigator who had signed off on Ryan's application was terminated. The chain of approvals that had allowed him onto the force was documented as evidence of systemic failure. Agent Devereaux provided testimony over 2 days. He walked through every moment of the encounter with the precision that had made him one of the Bureau's most effective interrogators. When asked how he had remained calm while being illegally detained, his answer made headlines. "I've spent 17 years catching drug dealers. Real ones. I know what they look like, how they operate, what behaviors indicate criminal activity." Officer Caldwell saw none of those things. He saw black skin and decided that was enough. It wasn't. The federal courtroom in Atlanta was filled to capacity. The case had drawn national attention. An FBI agent accused of dealing drugs from a kayak by a rookie officer who couldn't imagine that a black man might simply be enjoying a Saturday morning on the water. The prosecution's strategy was straightforward. Let the evidence speak. The Bodycam footage was played first. 11 minutes of continuous recording. The jury watched Caldwell approach. They watched him demand a search. They watched him dismiss every explanation. They watched him laugh at the mention of FBI. They watched him find the credentials and go silent. Then they played Crawford's phone recording. The same encounter from Devereaux's perspective, including everything said before Caldwell's Bodycam began buffering properly. We got a report of drug activity in this area, and you fit the description. What description? A black man with a kayak. That's none of your business. The prosecutor paused the audio at that moment. None of your business. A citizen asks what crime he's suspected of, and Officer Caldwell tells him it's none of his business. That's not law enforcement. That's harassment. That's racial profiling. That's exactly what the Fourth Amendment was written to prevent. The 911 call was played next. The jury listened to Rebecca Hartley explain her discomfort. They heard the dispatcher ask for details. They heard the admission that there was no drug activity, no transaction, no criminal behavior, just a feeling. This call is what triggered the response. The prosecutor continued. A feeling of discomfort from a woman who had made 14 similar calls over 2 years. 14 times she saw a black person in a space she considered hers, and 14 times she called police to remove them. Officer Caldwell was the weapon she used that day, and he was more than willing to be used. The pattern evidence was displayed on screens. 31 stops, 26 minorities, 0 arrests. Text messages joking about, reminding people how things work. Social media posts celebrating aggressive policing. Devereaux testified on the 4th day. He wore a Navy suit, the same attire he wore when testifying in the federal cases he had built over 17 years. I've spent my career identifying drug dealers, he told the jury. I've worked undercover operations where a single mistake could cost my life. I know what suspicious activity looks like. What I was doing at Lake Lanier wasn't suspicious. It was recreation. The only reason Officer Caldwell stopped me was the color of my skin. The defense attempted the only strategy available. Honest mistake based on a legitimate call. The caller had reported drug activity. Caldwell had responded. Mistakes were made. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. The call reported a feeling, not a crime. Officer Caldwell knew that when he demanded a search. He knew it when he ignored identification. He knew it when he laughed at federal credentials. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice to treat a black man as a criminal because Officer Caldwell couldn't imagine any other possibility. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. Guilty on all counts. Caldwell stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His father, suspended, awaiting his own termination hearing, sat in the gallery, head bowed. The judge scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that betrays every principle of law enforcement. He used his badge to harass citizens based on race. He did so to a federal agent, while that agent's supervisor listened on the phone, after ignoring every opportunity to verify the truth. The consequences will be severe. Sentencing drew the largest crowd of any proceeding in the case. The judge reviewed the pre-sentencing report with visible contempt. The failed background checks. The father's corrupt influence. The text messages. The stop records. The pattern visible to anyone who looked. Officer Caldwell, you had 9 weeks to learn what it means to wear a badge. Instead, you spent those 9 weeks demonstrating exactly why 4 departments rejected you. You targeted minorities. You conducted unconstitutional searches. You joked with your friends about reminding people how things work. She paused. And when you encountered Agent Devereaux, a man who has spent 17 years risking his life to protect this country, you saw only his skin color. You accused him of dealing drugs from a kayak. You laughed when he identified himself. You searched his belongings without consent or cause. The courtroom was silent. 15 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Crimes against federal agents carry enhanced sentences for a reason. The law enforcement community depends on mutual respect and recognition. You violated that principle in the most fundamental way possible. Lieutenant Thomas Caldwell was terminated the following week. His 24-year career ended in disgrace. His pension was revoked. 3 supervisors who had approved Ryan's application were demoted and transferred. The police chief resigned before he could be forced out. The department entered a DOJ consent decree requiring federal oversight for 5 years. Rebecca Hartley, the 911 caller, pleaded guilty to filing a false police report. She received 18 months probation and mandatory community service with civil rights organizations. Her pattern of calls was cited in the sentencing memorandum as evidence of systematic weaponization of law enforcement against black citizens. The city settled with Agent Devereaux for $6.8 million within 4 months. He kept $4.8 million for his family, college funds for his 2 sons, security for their future. The remaining $2 million established the Devereaux Youth Outdoor Foundation, providing kayaking, camping, and wilderness programs to inner-city children in Atlanta. "Every child deserves to experience what I experienced on that lake," he said in the statement announcing the foundation. "Not the harassment, the peace, the freedom, the right to exist in nature without someone deciding you don't belong." Ryan Caldwell is currently incarcerated at Federal Correctional Institution Jessup in Georgia. He will be eligible for release in 2039. His appeals have been denied twice. His father visits monthly. His former colleagues do not. Agent Marcus Devereaux was promoted to Supervisory Special Agent 6 months after the incident. He now oversees the same drug enforcement task force he once served on, managing undercover operations across the Southeast region. He still kayaks every Saturday morning. Same lake, same boat launch, same routine he had followed for years before a 911 caller decided he didn't belong. The families at Pine Grove recognize him now. They wave. They nod. They ask about his sons. The crossing guard at the entrance knows his truck by sight. He paddles the same routes, writes nothing in particular in his mind, and returns to shore refreshed, the peace that the water has always provided, undisturbed by the officer who tried to take it from him. His waterproof bag still sits on the tailgate when he loads his kayak. Phone, wallet, keys, FBI credentials. The badge is the same one Caldwell found that morning. It carries no additional marks, no commemorative engravings, no physical reminder of what happened. It doesn't need one. The lake remembers. The foundation carries his name. And every Saturday, Marcus Devereaux proves that the water was never the problem. The problem was an officer who couldn't imagine a black man belonging there. That officer is gone now. The lake remains.
Sir, I need to see some ID. We've had reports of suspicious activity in the area.
What's suspicious about me?
Do you have identification or not?
I'm waiting for my daughter. I sit here every day until she gets out of school.
I don't care if you're father of the year. ID. Now.
I may not.
47 police misconduct cases. $120 million in judgments. 14 years on the federal bench, building a reputation that made officers pray their cases would land anywhere else. Judge William Mathewson had spent his career holding law enforcement accountable. On a Friday afternoon in Riverside Park, he would do it one more time, as the victim instead of the judge. Officer Derek Sloan was 11 weeks out of the academy when he approached a black man in a gray hoodie sitting on a park bench near an elite private school. The man was writing in a journal, waiting for his daughter, doing what he had done every weekday for 6 years. Sloan saw none of that. He saw suspicious. He saw someone who didn't belong. He saw what 11 weeks of assumptions and a lifetime of bias told him to see. When the judge identified himself, Sloan laughed and said, "Someone like you doesn't become a federal judge." The Bodycam recorded everything. The school bell rang. A 12-year-old girl walked out to find her father in handcuffs. 50 million people would watch. 15 years would follow. Riverside Park occupied 2 acres of manicured green space in Atlanta's Buckhead neighborhood, directly adjacent to Riverside Academy, an elite private school where annual tuition exceeded most families' annual income. The park served as an unofficial waiting area for parents during pickup hours. Nannies pushed strollers along the walking paths. Mothers gathered in small groups near the playground. Fathers checked emails on shaded benches while waiting for the 3:15 p.m. bell. The wrought iron bench beneath the large oak tree had been Judge Mathewson's spot for 6 years. He had claimed it when Maya started first grade, back when his wife Eleanor was still alive, back when they would sit together watching their daughter emerge from the school's front entrance. After Eleanor passed, the routine remained. The bench remained. The journal remained. William Mathewson, 54 years old, United States Federal District Judge for the Northern District of Georgia. 14 years on the bench after Senate confirmation. Before that, 18 years as a civil rights attorney, including 2 arguments before the Supreme Court. He had won both. Yale Law School, valedictorian, law review editor. The kind of credentials that opened doors and commanded respect in courtrooms across the country. First black federal judge in his district's history. A pioneer who had spent his career ensuring the law applied equally to everyone who appeared before him. 47 police misconduct cases. Officers who had violated constitutional rights. Departments that had enabled abuse. Judgments that had cost municipalities $120 million and careers that had ended with his rulings. They called him the Hammer in police union meetings. They called him worse in private. None of that showed on the man in the gray hoodie and black sweatpants, writing in a leather-bound journal beneath an oak tree. That was the point. These 30 minutes before Maya's dismissal were his. No robes. No title. Just a father waiting for his daughter. The 911 call came in at 2:43 p.m. I'd like to report a suspicious individual at Riverside Park. What's the nature of the suspicious activity? There's a black male sitting on a bench near the school. He's been there for about 10 minutes. Just sitting. Writing something. He doesn't have any children with him. Can you describe him? Black. 40s or 50s. Gray hoodie. Black pants. He has a backpack. He keeps looking toward the school. The caller didn't mention that he was sitting on the same bench he had occupied for 6 years. Didn't mention that teachers waved to him through the windows. Didn't mention that the crossing guard had greeted him by name 15 minutes earlier. Officer Derek Sloan was dispatched at 2:45 p.m. 11 weeks on the force. Fresh from the academy. Eager to prove himself on calls that more experienced officers would have handled with a 5-second conversation. He pulled his patrol car to the curb at 2:47 p.m. His Bodycam activated automatically as he stepped out. Judge Mathewson was mid-sentence in his journal when the shadow fell across the page. "Sir, I need you to stand up." Judge Mathewson looked up from his journal. The officer standing over him was young, mid-20s at most. His uniform still had the crisp sheen of recent issue. His badge number was in the 9200 series, indicating recent graduation from the academy. "Is there a problem, officer? I need to see some identification. May I ask why?" "We received a report of suspicious activity in this area." Judge Mathewson set his pen down carefully, marking his place in the journal. His movements were deliberate, unhurried, the body language of someone who had spent decades managing tense situations. What suspicious activity would that be? That's what I'm here to determine. ID now. I'm sitting on a park bench writing in my journal. I've been doing this every weekday for 6 years while waiting for my daughter to finish school. Sloan's weight shifted forward. The Bodycam captured his posture, aggressive, impatient, already convinced of something he couldn't articulate. "I don't care if you're Father of the Year. ID now." "Officer, I'm not required to produce identification simply for sitting in a public park. You are when I'm investigating a report." "What report?" "Someone called because a black man was sitting on a bench." Sloan's jaw tightened. The Bodycam caught the reaction, the flicker of irritation when the unspoken was spoken aloud. "I didn't say anything about race." "You didn't have to. I've been sitting on this bench since my daughter started first grade. The teachers know me. The parents know me. The crossing guard waved to me 20 minutes ago. The only thing suspicious about me is my skin color." "Sir, I'm going to ask you one more time. And I'm going to tell you one more time. I'm a father waiting for his child. I'm also a federal judge. I suggest you verify that before this encounter goes any further." The words landed clearly. The Bodycam recorded them without ambiguity. Sloan's expression shifted. Not toward caution. Not toward the recalculation that should have followed such a statement. Toward something else entirely. He laughed. A federal judge. The contempt in his voice was unmistakable. "Right. And I'm the president. I'm Judge William Mathewson, Northern District of Georgia. My chambers are in the Richard B. Russell Federal Building. You can verify this with a single phone call." "Sure I can. I encourage you to do so. You know what I think?" Sloan stepped closer. His hand moved to his belt. "I think you're someone who got caught doing something you shouldn't be doing, and now you're making up stories. I'm sitting on a bench, near a school, without a child, with a backpack. My daughter is inside that school. She'll be out in 20 minutes. Her name is Maya. She's in 6th grade. Her teacher is Mrs. Patterson. Anyone can make up names. Anyone can verify them. Call the school. Call the courthouse. Call anyone you like. But do not continue to harass a federal judge for the crime of waiting for his daughter." Sloan's hand moved from his belt to his handcuffs. The motion was captured clearly on the Bodycam. "Sir, I'm going to need you to stand up and turn around." "On what grounds?" "Failure to comply with a lawful order." "You haven't given a lawful order. You've demanded identification without probable cause and ignored every explanation I've provided. Stand up." Now, Judge Mathewson closed his journal. He placed it carefully in his backpack. He looked directly into the body cam mounted on Sloane's chest. Officer, I want you to remember this moment. Everything that follows is your choice. Sloane grabbed Judge Mathewson's arm before he could stand on his own. The grip was aggressive, fingers digging into fabric, yanking upward with force that served no purpose except to demonstrate control. The body cam captured the motion. So did the phones of 3 bystanders who had stopped to watch the encounter. I told you I'm a federal judge. And I told you I don't believe you. Why not? Sloane spun him toward the oak tree, pressed him against the bark. The rough surface scraped against the judge's palms as his hands were forced behind his back. Because someone like you doesn't become a federal judge. The words were clear, unhesitating, delivered with the casual certainty of someone stating an obvious fact. Someone like me. You heard me. I'd like you to explain what you mean by that. Sloane's handcuffs clicked around the judge's left wrist. The metal was cold, tight. The body cam audio captured the ratcheting sound. I don't have to explain anything to you. You just told me that someone like me doesn't become a federal judge. I'm asking you to clarify. What about me suggests I'm incapable of holding that position? The second cuff closed around his right wrist. Judge Mathewson was now restrained against a tree, the same tree he had sat beneath for 6 years, writing journal entries while his daughter learned inside the building 50 feet away. You're not dressed like a judge. I'm dressed like a father on a Friday afternoon. Judges don't sit in parks. This one does. Every day? For 6 years. Voices rose from the gathering crowd. Parents who had been waiting for dismissal. Joggers who had stopped on the path. A woman with a stroller who had her phone raised and recording. What are you doing? He's just sitting there. He comes here every day? That's Judge Mathewson. Leave him alone. Sloane turned toward the voices. His hand moved to his weapon, not drawing, but resting. The body cam captured the crowd. 12 people now. Phones everywhere. Everyone back up. This is police business. What police business? He was reading a book. I said back up. An older woman, someone Judge Mathewson recognized as the grandmother of one of Maya's classmates, stepped forward. Officer, I've known that man for 5 years. He's a federal judge. His daughter goes to school here. He sits on that bench every single day. Ma'am, if you don't step back, I'll arrest you for interference. You can't arrest someone for telling you the truth. I can arrest anyone I want. Judge Mathewson's voice cut through the chaos. Calm, measured, the same tone he used when delivering rulings. Officer Sloane, your badge number is 9247. You've been on the force for approximately 11 weeks based on your badge series. You responded to a call about a suspicious black man sitting in a park. You refused to verify my identity through any available channel. You handcuffed me against a tree in front of witnesses and cameras. And you told me that someone like me doesn't become a federal judge. He turned his head, looking directly at Sloane over his shoulder. I've presided over 47 police misconduct cases. I've issued judgments totaling $120 million against officers who believe their badges made them untouchable. You are about to become Case 48. The school bell rang. The sound cut through the afternoon air, familiar, routine, the same bell that had marked the end of Maya's school day for 6 years. Students began emerging from the front entrance. 6th graders first, released before the younger children. Maya Mathewson walked out with 2 friends, laughing about something, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She looked toward the oak tree. She saw her father in handcuffs. Her face crumbled. Maya's scream cut through the crowd. She dropped her backpack and ran, past the other parents, past the recording phones, past everything except the image of her father restrained against a tree. Maya, stop. Judge Mathewson's voice was firm despite the handcuffs. Stay there, sweetheart. It's okay. Why is he? What's happening, Daddy? I need you to stay calm. This officer made a mistake. It's going to be corrected. Sloane had frozen. The presence of a child, the judge's child, clearly, unmistakably, had introduced a variable he hadn't anticipated. The body cam captured his hesitation. His hand dropped from his weapon. Sir, is that? That's my daughter. Maya. 6th grade. Mrs. Patterson's class. Everything I told you is true. Everything you chose not to verify. A patrol car pulled up to the curb. Then another. The backup Sloane had called for was arriving, along with someone he hadn't requested. Sergeant Diane Crawford stepped out of the first vehicle. 22 years on the force. a reputation for by-the-book policing. She had testified in Judge Mathewson's courtroom 4 times. She had seen his photograph in legal publications. She had watched him deliver rulings that other judges avoided. She recognized him immediately. Officer Sloan. Her voice carried across the park. Remove those handcuffs. Now. Sergeant, I was responding to a suspicious person call. I know who you were responding to. I know who he is. Remove the handcuffs. Sloan fumbled with his keys. The cuffs clicked open. Judge Mathewson brought his arms forward, rubbing his wrists slowly, documenting the red marks for the cameras still recording. Crawford approached with the deference that 22 years had taught her to show federal judges. Your Honor, I apologize. Are you injured? Physically, no. Otherwise, we'll see. She turned to Sloan. Her expression carried something beyond anger. The look of someone watching a catastrophe unfold and knowing exactly what it would cost. Do you have any idea who you just handcuffed? He said he was a judge, but he didn't. He is a judge. Federal District Judge William Mathewson. Northern District of Georgia. He's presided over more police misconduct cases than any other jurist in this state. The blood drained from Sloan's face. The body cam captured the transformation. The moment certainty gave way to horror. I didn't. No one told me. He told you. Multiple times. You laughed at him. You told him someone like him doesn't become a federal judge. Crawford's voice dropped. That phrase is going to follow you for the rest of your life. Maya had reached her father. She pressed against his side, crying, clutching his arm. He held her close, his hand steady on her back. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm okay. Why did he do that? Because he saw what he expected to see, not what was actually there. A third vehicle arrived. Unmarked, civilian plates. Captain James Holloway from Internal Affairs. He had been monitoring radio traffic. He had heard the judge's name. He had driven directly from headquarters. His face was gray as he approached. Judge Mathewson. I'm Captain Holloway, Internal Affairs. I want to assure you. Captain, I don't need assurances. I need your officer's body cam footage preserved. I need the dispatch recording secured. I need the 911 call that brought him here archived before anyone can alter it. Of course, Your Honor. And I need Officer Sloan to understand that everything that happened here, every word, every action, every second of this encounter, will be reviewed by the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and eventually a federal jury. He looked at Sloan one final time. The young officer stood alone, his sergeant and captain having stepped away, the crowd watching with phones still raised. Your career is over. What happens next determines whether you spend the next 15 years in prison. The body cam footage was in FBI custody by midnight. The video went public 48 hours later, released by Judge Mathewson's office with a statement that read simply, the public has a right to see how officers conduct themselves when they believe no one of consequence is watching. 50 million views in the first week. The phrase someone like you became a hashtag. The image of a federal judge handcuffed against an oak tree while his daughter watched became the defining visual of police accountability debates nationwide. But the footage only told part of the story. The investigation would reveal the rest. Officer Derek Sloan had been hired 11 weeks earlier despite failing psychological evaluations twice. 2 separate assessments had flagged concerning attitudes toward authority, difficulty accepting correction, and indicators of bias requiring intervention. Both evaluators had recommended against certification. 3 other departments had rejected his application. Cobb County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett County. Each had documented concerns during the interview process. Each had passed. The Atlanta Police Department hired him anyway. Lieutenant Robert Sloan, Derek's uncle, had shepherded the application through. He had overruled the psychological evaluations as overly cautious. He had dismissed the rejections from other departments as personality conflicts. He had pushed his nephew into a uniform despite every warning sign that predicted exactly what happened at Riverside Park. Digital forensics uncovered more. Derek Sloan's social media accounts contained posts that would have disqualified any properly vetted candidate. Membership in online groups that discussed keeping neighborhoods safe. Comments on news articles about police shootings that celebrated officers and blamed victims. Private messages to friends joking about putting people in their place. His stop records told the same story. 23 civilian contacts in 11 weeks. 21 involved Black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests. 0 citations. Just stops. demands for ID, questions about what people were doing in neighborhoods where Sloan had decided they didn't belong. The 911 caller was identified within days. Margaret Weston, 67 years old, resident of the Buckhead neighborhood for 30 years. She had no connection to Judge Mathewson. She had no knowledge of any crime. She had simply seen a black man sitting in a park near an elite school and decided he warranted police attention. Investigation revealed she had made 14 similar calls over 3 years. Black joggers, black dog walkers, black families using the playground. 14 calls, 0 crimes. A pattern of weaponizing 911 against people whose only offense was existing while black. She was charged with filing false police reports and conspiracy to deprive civil rights. The FBI presented its findings to a federal grand jury 6 weeks after the incident. The indictment against Derek Sloan included assault on a federal official, deprivation of rights under color of law, filing a false report, and evidence tampering. His body cam had been manually set to buffering mode, which stored footage locally rather than uploading to the cloud. The technical team determined this wasn't malfunction. It was intentional. Lieutenant Robert Sloan was suspended pending investigation into corrupt hiring practices. 3 supervisors who had approved Derek's application despite documented red flags were placed on administrative leave. Judge Mathewson provided testimony to the grand jury over 2 days. He walked through every moment of the encounter with the precision that had made him feared in courtrooms across the state. When asked how he had remained so calm while being handcuffed, his answer was quoted in every news broadcast. "I've spent 14 years listening to officers explain why they treated black citizens as criminals without evidence. I've heard every excuse, every justification. I knew exactly what was happening. I knew exactly how it would end." The grand jury returned indictments within hours. Trial was scheduled in Washington, D.C. Conflict of interest prevented any Georgia court from hearing the case. The federal courtroom in Washington was filled to capacity. Journalists, legal observers, civil rights advocates, police accountability activists, all watching the prosecution of an officer who had handcuffed a federal judge for sitting on a park bench. The bodycam footage was played first. 14 minutes of continuous recording. The jury watched Sloan approach. They watched him demand identification. They watched him dismiss every explanation. They watched him laugh at the mention of federal judge. They watched him deliver the phrase that had made this case national news. "Someone like you doesn't become a federal judge." The prosecutor paused the video at that moment. Sloan's face frozen on screen, contempt visible in his expression. What did Officer Sloan mean by someone like you? We don't have to speculate. His own record tells us everything. The stop data was displayed on screens large enough for every juror to read. 23 stops. 21 targeting minorities. 0 arrests. 0 evidence of any crime. Officer Sloan didn't stop Judge Mathewson because of suspicious activity. He stopped him because a black man was sitting in a park near an expensive school. That was enough for Officer Sloan. It shouldn't be enough for anyone wearing a badge. Judge Mathewson testified on the 3rd day. He wore the same gray hoodie he had worn the afternoon of the incident. A deliberate choice, a visual reminder that clothing doesn't determine character. His testimony lasted 4 hours. He described the routine, the bench, the journal, the 6 years of afternoons waiting for Maya. He described Sloan's approach, the demands, the refusal to verify, the laugh, the phrase. He looked at me and saw what his assumptions told him to see. A threat, a criminal, someone who didn't belong. He didn't see a father. He didn't see a judge. He didn't see a human being deserving of basic dignity. He saw a black man in a hoodie, and that was enough to justify everything that followed. The defense attempted the only strategy available. Honest mistake. Training deficiency. No way to know. The prosecutor's rebuttal was surgical. He couldn't have known because he didn't want to know. Judge Mathewson told him he was a federal judge. Officer Sloan laughed. Judge Mathewson offered to verify through the courthouse. Officer Sloan refused. Judge Mathewson explained that he sat on that bench every day. Officer Sloan called him a liar. She turned to face the jury. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. A choice to assume. A choice to dismiss. A choice to humiliate a man in front of his own daughter because Officer Sloan believed, truly believed, that someone like Judge Mathewson couldn't possibly be telling the truth. Sloan testified in his own defense. It lasted 2 hours under cross-examination. He claimed he was following procedure. The prosecutor showed the stop data. He claimed he couldn't have known. The prosecutor played the bodycam footage where Judge Mathewson identified himself 3 times. He claimed the phrase, "someone like you," referred to clothing, not race. The prosecutor played it again. The jury watched his face as he said it. No one in the courtroom believed him. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. Sloan stood motionless as the verdicts were read. His uncle, suspended, awaiting his own disciplinary hearing, was not in the courtroom. His attorney had warned him not to show his face. The judge presiding scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. The defendant has demonstrated a pattern of conduct that betrays every principle of law enforcement. He used his badge to humiliate citizens based on the color of their skin. He did so to a federal judge, in front of that judge's child, while cameras recorded every moment. This court will ensure the consequences match the gravity of his actions. Sentencing drew the largest crowd of any proceeding in the case. Judge Mathewson did not attend. He had recused himself from any involvement in the punishment phase, concerned that his presence might appear to influence the outcome. But he submitted a victim impact statement that was read aloud in the courtroom. My daughter watched her father handcuffed against a tree where I had waited for her every day since she started 1st grade. A tree where I wrote her letters for her future, reflections on her growth, hopes for the woman she would become. Officer Sloan didn't just assault me. He assaulted the sacred space where a father and daughter met every afternoon for 6 years. Maya still flinches when she sees police officers. She still asks why they did that to Daddy. I have no answer that makes sense to a 12-year-old, because there is no answer that makes sense to anyone. The judge presiding reviewed the pre-sentencing report. Derek Sloan's history, the failed evaluations, the departmental rejections, the uncle who had pushed him through, the stop records, the social media posts, the pattern that had been visible to anyone who looked. Officer Sloan, you had every warning. Your psychological evaluations flagged bias. 3 departments rejected you. 21 of your 23 stops targeted minorities. You wrote posts joking about putting people in their place. And when you encountered Judge Mathewson, a man who had dedicated his career to holding officers accountable, you proved every warning correct. She paused. 15 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. This sentence reflects not only what you did to Judge Mathewson, but what you would have continued doing to countless others if you hadn't chosen the wrong victim. Lieutenant Robert Sloan was terminated the following week. His pension was revoked. His 23-year career ended in disgrace. The 3 supervisors who approved Derek's hiring were demoted and transferred. The police chief resigned before he could be forced out. The department entered a DOJ consent decree requiring federal oversight for 7 years. Margaret Weston, the 911 caller, pleaded guilty to filing false reports. She received 2 years probation and mandatory community service with civil rights organizations. The city settled with Judge Mathewson for $7.2 million within 4 months. He accepted the settlement and donated the entire amount to establish the Maya Mathewson Justice Fund, providing legal representation to victims of racial profiling who couldn't afford attorneys. This money exists because my daughter watched her father treated as a criminal, he said in the statement announcing the fund. I'm using it to help families who experience the same injustice but don't have a federal judgeship to shield them. Derek Sloan is currently incarcerated at FCI Morgantown in West Virginia. He will be eligible for release in 2039. His appeals have been denied twice. His uncle visits monthly. No one else does. Judge William Mathewson continues to sit on the federal bench. His 48th police misconduct ruling came 6 months after the incident, a case involving an officer who had stopped a black doctor for driving an expensive car. The judgment was $2.3 million. Every weekday at 2:45 p.m., he leaves his chambers and drives to Riverside Park. He sits on the same wrought iron bench beneath the same oak tree. He writes in the same leather-bound journal. Maya joins him at 3:15, just as she always has. They walk to the car together. She no longer flinches at uniforms. Therapy helped. She now wants to be a civil rights attorney. The crossing guard still waves. The teachers still smile from the windows. The parents still nod in recognition. The bench remains. The routine remains. The judge remains. Because William Mathewson refused to let one officer's racism redefine his life.